Welcome to Connection to the Cosmos with your host, me, Dr. Lisa Thompson, where I have out-of-this-world conversations with extraordinary people. And today I am so excited to have my new friend, Dallisa Hocking on. We're going to be bringing her on screen in just a moment. But first, I want to just make a couple of announcements. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel and like and comment. If you're here on Facebook, we would love to see your comments. And if you're listening on podcast, thank you so much. And so, a couple of other announcements. My book, Connection to the Cosmos, Remembering Your Galactic Heritage and Embracing Your Oneness, is now available on Amazon, as well as my website, mysticmanta.com. Also, my Oracle deck, Connection to the Cosmos. And I have a special that we're going to be talking about when I bring Dalissa on that is related to the summit, Planets and Predictions, that's upcoming. I also have an online class coming up Tuesday, September 27th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. It's called Connection to the Cosmos, Introduction to Extraterrestrials and Extra Dimensionals. So please sign up for that. That's on the website, mysticmanta.com. But now I want to bring on Dalissa. Hello. Woo! And she just flew in back to Texas from Las Vegas, making it like right in time.
Seriously. You know what's so funny about that? And thank you for having me on the show. Congratulations on your new book. I love the cover. I can't wait to read it.
Thank you.
I just literally flew in and I get in the car. I live quite a bit out from the Austin airport. So it's about a 75-minute drive.
Oh, wow.
So I get in the car, and of course, I have this all timed out. So I'm home and ready to go for our discussion. And I realized mathematically I don't have enough gas to get all the way home. And so I drove all the way to my neighborhood gas station. And so it was always like for that 75-minute ride home, okay, how many miles do I have left? How many miles is the car saying I have? Is this going to work the whole way home? But I made it.
You did. And so let me tell people all about you, because you are like one of the most fascinating people that I've met, but also that I've definitely.
No pressure.
So Dallisa Hocking is the CEO of Spirit and Spark, a 5th-generation psychic medium, transformation coach, intuitive business consultant, and media producer and host. Before she became a nationally recognized psychic medium and transformation coach, Dalissa led a very different life as an executive in the casino industry in Las Vegas. She has made matters of the heart, living authentically and teaching people how to elevate their own joy, her core mission. Beautiful. In 2017, she founded Spirit and Spark, a now nationwide company devoted to connecting individuals and groups with top spiritual and wellness service providers. Dalissa has trained with industry superstars such as Tony Robbins, Dr. Weiss, Dr. Bruce Lipton, one of my favorites, and Dr. Raymond Moody. She received her psychic gifts from her grandmother, Eloise, and great-grandmother, Belle. Dalissa has also had the privilege of working on missing persons, mysterious deaths, and cold cases, providing loved ones with information and closure. She also produced, directed, and starred in her own Las Vegas stage show, Psychics and Spirits, at the haunted Binion's Gambling Hall and Hotel. She has a unique way of seeing through layers of energy to get to the root of the fear, scarcity mindset, and self-sabotaging beliefs. She acts as a powerful guide for those seeking to deeply transform from their old way of being. Her certifications include Doreen Virtue.
We're just going for it. This is like
I want everyone to be like, wow, this lady is amazing. So, yep.
Oh, mercy.
Because, this will help decide which direction we're going to go in the conversation. Okay,
perfect.
Certifications. Okay, we have Doreen Virtue Angel Card Reader, Lee Harris's Energy Mastery, Hollis Duran and John Holland's Mediumship courses, the Richard Knight Tarot Academy, as well as a bachelor degree in communications, Kepner Trego Problem Solving and Decision Making certification, and a Women's Entrepreneurship certificate from Cornell University. Wow.
Yeah. I don't know what else I would add to that, but I think that covers it.
Right? Okay, well, so the way that I do like to start the conversation before we get into the business side and all of that is I'm always curious how people grow up, like what kind of household, spiritual, religious, or not at all, because you're now, well, you are a psychic medium and you do all of this amazing stuff. So what was your childhood like?
That's such a great question. My mom felt it was important for me to go to Catholic night school. So I'd go to public school during the day, and then I would go to CCD. Some of your listeners, viewers may know what that is. So I'd go and, they'd try to teach me about the Bible and Catholicism. And I'm a Gemini rising.
Okay.
I'd be sitting in the class, like running my mouth. I got kicked out one time for talking too much. I will never forget that. So yes, we went to church, but it wasn't something we necessarily discussed every day in terms of like religion. But we did talk about ghosts and premonitions and, seeing galactic craft in the sky and what apparition showed up the night before and what they were wearing. So those were our typical conversations. I think we talked more about the spiritual stuff than we did religion. But both of my grandmothers were Catholic, one very, very Catholic. She passed last year. It's my mom's mom. And she and I would sit in her living room and she would watch Mass on TV as she literally made hundreds of thousands over the years of rosaries. And at her service last year, I'm standing with my parents. My brother may have been there, and her casket was there, and it was the viewing. And I could see my grandmother, who had just died, standing behind the casket. And she comes over to the side. I'm telling my parents what's going on. And then the next day at the Catholic church, we're sitting, in the pews, and the service is going, and I did her eulogy. And before I got up on stage, I looked over and I could see her and feel her in the pew across the aisle. So it's one of those things, you turn to your mom and say, hey, But yeah, we always just kind of sat around, whether it was even my mom's mom was very intrigued about the psychic world, even though the gifts come from my dad's side of the family.
Okay.
So on both sides, I have really fond memories with my grandmothers talking about these things. And then, of course, my dad and my mom, we talk about this stuff all the time. They came to my workshop I just taught in Las Vegas on Saturday.
Oh, amazing. So now, were these psychic gifts always there? Or like, did you have them as a kid and they got shut down like some kids and then you regain them later in life, or only later in life?
Mine came in literally overnight in 2015.
Okay.
Yeah, when you talk about, I hear some of my clients or students say, oh, I wish I had this ability. I wish you would just drop in. I'm like, okay, well, listen, it does and it can, but it completely changes everything you know about your life, and you really can't go back. So I remember feeling certain things, I would call it more intuition growing up. I didn't have it to the degree my grandmother had it. I was afraid, actually, half curious, half afraid when my grandmother would talk about, the apparitions that she would see and what they were wearing. And I would, quiz her a lot about the information that she was getting, but I didn't get any of that. There were a few instances where I could feel a spirit, or I felt like I knew something before it happened. But in 2015, I owned a dating and matchmaking company at that point. I was working at a business school in Texas, in Fort Worth, Texas, and minding literally my own business.
Yeah.
And I went up to the Omega Institute, which is about 100 miles north of LaGuardia Airport in New York. And I went to a workshop on synchronicity. And I don't know if you want to get into all that, but that is where everything changed overnight.
Okay.
7 years ago.
Yeah. So what happened? Like, you just started seeing things or hearing things or both? Feeling?
Yeah.
For you, how does it come in?
Yeah, I'm clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient primarily. So I will see imagery and symbols, words and phrases, and feel things in my physical body. Primarily, I'll get things that drop in. I'll smell things sometimes, but I would say those three are the main vehicles that the messages come through with. So I go to this workshop. It was led by Dr. Eben Alexander, who is a neurosurgeon who had a near-death experience, wrote a best-selling book about it. But I've studied near-death experiences. I've never had one personally, but I love hearing the stories and the experiences that people have when they die and come back. And the Omega Institute was doing this workshop on synchronicity, and people that had studied that, everything does happen for a reason. And we're going to show you how this shows up in the data. And Dr. Alexander was the one putting it all together. And I thought, I got to go. But I was dating somebody at the time, and it was his birthday weekend. And I found out last minute that he was going to go see his mom. Perfect. I'm going out of town. So at the last minute, bought the airplane ticket. It was really cheap. There was a spot in the workshop, everything, lined up.
Synchronicity.
Right. How ironic, right? I'm going to a workshop on synchronicity. There are a slew of things that happen that are very synchronized before I go on that trip. And when I arrive on that trip, one of which includes somebody that I worked with in a Las Vegas project, just so happened to have a house in the middle of the forest near the Omega Institute.
Okay.
And he said, hey, come stay with me. So I stayed there the first night, and then I go to the Omega Institute. I'm on campus. Last night of the trip, he says, hey, come on over. We're going to have dinner because I had to leave for the airport the next day. So I'm at his house, and we're watching the Saved by the Bell, the unauthorized movie, in case anyone's wondering. Not that great. And just chilling. I don't know his family. I only know him from a work project. And he gets a phone call. His family was calling to tell him that his aunt had unexpectedly passed away. She had fallen down a flight of stairs. I get chills as I tell you this. And I didn't know her. I didn't know what she looked like, anything. And it's late at that point, movie's over. He goes upstairs, goes to bed. I go to bed in the guest room, and I don't think anything else of it until his aunt that had just passed hours before came through while I was sleeping. And I could see her. And she said, hey, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to tell my nephew I'm okay. I made it to the other side.
Okay.
And then the next morning, I wake up and it's, oh, what was that? You're coming out of the dream state. So I go into his kitchen. I'm like, all right, listen, I'm just going to break this down for you. Here's what happened. And he said, well, what does she look like? So I describe her hair, describe, what she looks like. And he's like, that's her. Oh, mercy. So, I fly back home to Texas, and my brain is now spinning a million miles an hour because I think I was doing, the meditations at the workshop. I was in the forest, right? I think the vibrational frequency was just right. But then I thought, well, my grandmother did this. Her grandmother did this. So of course it's finding me. So what else can I get to come through? So then I just started pulling the thread and practicing and channeling, and my life changed. Literally that night it changed.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and so you did take classes with people like John Holland, right? Was that to really enhance and strengthen, or just to validate yourself, or?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably a little bit of both. When I first started, and what I would do, this is right when I got back to Texas from this trip, I would get permission from an individual, and I'd write their first name at the top of a piece of paper, and I'd go into meditation, and then I would just close my eyes and let everything drop in, and then I would write it all out, and then I would share with them, what I got. So for me, it was a lot of psychic information.
Yeah.
But I was getting other spirits starting to kind of try to communicate with me, and I wanted to understand how to bridge that energy better. And so I went, and John was teaching with a woman named Janet. Janet actually just passed away, but They were incredible. And that whole workshop, it was out in Maine, beautiful there, and walking through different exercises on really how to hold that energy. But I was there, in class, and I remember that I would just start seeing all kinds of spirits, even in that workshop and delivering information. I thought, okay, yeah, this is here too, so we're going to work with it. But I love that spirit shows it to me more like a daydream, like a clairvoyant image projected out, rather than how my grandmother would see it. My grandmother would see it with her own physical eyes.
Got it.
And so I feel like by seeing it as a projection, it's not as scary, perhaps.
Okay. Well, and I've had other psychic mediums on the show, and it's so interesting just how everyone is a little bit different in how that information comes, but it's all like, it's all a beautiful thing. And so, but so only 7 years. And so then you went from that to then working on the missing persons cold cases. Was that in Vegas?
So there was a detective, a private detective that had hired me to look at several cases. So I've done that. I get crime premonitions. I've had 3 personal crime premonitions myself. And then I've been hired by numerous, family members of people that have either died mysteriously or gone missing. And I help them sort through, what happened towards the end. And if they're missing, are they still with us? What happened? Kind of, filling in those gaps. But yeah, crime, I definitely get those downloads. And the 3 things that happened to me personally, they dropped in right before they happened. And I was at the physical location that the crime was either happening at or happening nearby. And I don't mind going into those either, but yeah.
Yeah, well, you want to give us just one example, because this is so fast. There are TV shows that show this kind of stuff, but you're a real person that actually
yeah, it feels like I'm in a TV show some days. It's so wild. Yeah, I can quickly. One was my car was in front of a bank, and I felt that there was gonna be a robbery and all that. Turns out the ATM I was parked in front of, a man robbed a woman and her baby at gunpoint, like right after I left there. And it made all the news, and my parents were like, don't go to the bank by your house, as I'm like, leaving the bank. One was a break-in at an Airbnb, and I heard them say, there's going to be a man that breaks into your Airbnb tonight. And he did. He broke in about 3 hours later. These are the short versions of the story.
Yeah.
And then one was a gun altercation at a store in Las Vegas. And I was grocery shopping with my mom. And I was towards the back of the store, like where the dairy aisle is. And I could feel people running with panic psychically out of the back of the store. I felt there was going to be a fight with 2 men. I heard in my clairaudience 2 men fighting, all this stuff. Nothing happens. We get out of the grocery store, and the next day, my mom was getting her hair done, and a woman said, hey, did you hear what happened at the store? And this one was the store down the street. I was getting the premonition a couple of minutes before it happened, but 2 men ended up getting into a gun altercation at the store, and everyone ran out of the back of the store. So I was picking it up just a couple of minutes before, because we have the timestamp from the receipt at the store we were at, so we could compare it to the news articles that came out. So that was actually on Halloween a couple of years ago. So I made a whole YouTube video about it.
Well, and what's the most, I guess, interesting of the missing person or mysterious death kind of cases?
Oh boy. I don't know if there'd be anything that would be absolutely shocking or surprising to the family members. The reason I say that is because, like, there's one that comes to mind where it was 2 women that were friends, that their male friend had gone missing. And I said, oh, here's what happened. And there were multiple people involved and they're not going to be charged to the full extent of the law. Like I went through all this stuff and they're like, okay, well, he's missing at this point. And then I think it was about a year later, they said, you're never going to believe this. But our local newspaper just wrote an article, and everything you said is what they ended up writing about in regards to how he died. So they ended up finding him, and we're able to line up some of those details. But, I remember doing one that was a missing persons for a gentleman, and he was looking for a family member. And I was seeing all of this stuff that was related to like more of like a gang drug stuff, and had all this stuff pile in for this missing persons. And I said, I don't think you're going to find him. And then after I got done going through all my information, he said, everything you said was what I suspected happened to him. So sometimes it's just letting somebody know that what they're feeling or sensing about what happened is either, confirmation that that's what I'm getting too, or like, hey, maybe check here, or maybe, look into this detail a little bit further, because there was one with a young woman who had been murdered, and they were trying to figure out who was really guilty of the murder. And so I helped the family member out, kind of sorting through some of those details and some issues they were having with proving the guilt of somebody involved. So,
okay. I know I have a very good friend that it has a granddaughter that was murdered, and they still haven't.
It's so tough. It's so tough.
But they have an idea of what happened, and people are protecting the ones that they.
So, it's very interesting working as a medium, looking at some of those, deep emotional situations that have happened. But, I feel like they gave me the gift for a reason. And I feel like I signed up for this. And even when I have professional astrologers look at my astrology chart, like, well, yeah, duh. Of course you're a psychic medium. Apparently it's like all over my chart in multiple ways. So I wish I would have had, an astrologer maybe 8 to 10 years ago say, hey, this is going to be coming. I did have a Reiki practitioner. She unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, very, very close to her. She did my first Reiki sessions on me in Las Vegas. Okay. And she turned to me one day and she goes, so your team is telling me that one day you're going to be very, very psychic. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I guess I did get a warning, but I didn't take it seriously.
Well, until now, right? Yeah. Well, so then how did you end up having a show doing this in Las Vegas? I mean, you were living in Las Vegas, but like, that's a really big deal to have like a stage production.
Yeah. And it was a tremendous amount of work. And frankly, I burned myself out. It's why I left Las Vegas and moved back to Texas. I live in a fairly small town now, because I had a storefront. I had, practitioners that were doing sessions and classes. And then I was like tapped on the shoulder from Binion's, which they have a hotel that was built in the 1930s. It's downtown Las Vegas, off of Fremont Street, if anyone's familiar with that area. Yeah. And they had me take news crews, like media personalities, through the hotel and go into different hotel rooms and stop with them. And of course, they'd have their cameras rolling, and I would channel different spirits that had been in that room. And I remember doing one day where I had all this information about this journalist and the typewriter that he used and all this stuff and dates and all that. And they confirmed it on Wikipedia after I got done channeling. That was really cool to get, some kind of instant confirmation. Yeah. But there's a room up there at the top of the hotel that it feels like a portal to me, but there were some spirits that were kind of in limbo and they wanted to kind of stay there and hang out. Mm-hmm. So there were a few times where I helped to hold light and hold the space so that the spirits that wanted to go up into the light. So yeah, after doing that, a few times, They're like, well, do you want to have a show? And so that's how it happened, really. And then I do all this work to get it going. I designed the stage to look like my grandmother's living room. My grandmother had actually predicted probably 30 years ago or so that I would need a stage name one day. And so in honor of her, I created the production company named after the stage name that she assigned to me all those years ago. And did all the media on the news, right? Like tickets on sale. And then the pandemic hit. So I had 4 live shows a week. They were like 90 minutes each. Okay. And the show ran for a few months, and then every single thing in Las Vegas was shut down. And then I took my entire company virtual, and it's been, that way since, except for when I go and travel and teach workshops and stuff.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, do you see yourself ever doing anything like that again? Or did you
love it?
Yeah.
I love it. I love teaching workshops. The workshop I just did in Las Vegas was called You Are Psychic Too. And it's just like, I can do it. You can do it. Let me teach you how. And we practiced with mediumship and remote viewing in the class. That was a lot of fun. So I love walking people through it. It's part of, I feel, my mission is to let people know that they can, tune into their intuition. They can get messages from them for themselves, and they can be healers if they want to be healers. I do like the 90-minute live show as well, and doing, readings from the audience. They're always, it's like a roller coaster, because you never know when you do live interaction like that with the audience and you pull people up on stage, you don't know what's going to happen. So right. I'm just as much a participant in the show as everyone that's there. I remember sitting backstage at Binion's, and I would have, journal and a pen. And before the show, I would just start channeling, just to start getting the energy moving, so that when I was on stage, like I was on and ready to go. And that show is geared more towards psychic messages, but there was a lot of mediumship that came through as well. So it was a blend.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, do you find that past loved ones, they know that you can do this, so they show up and they're like, hey, we want you to pass this message along?
All the time.
Okay.
All the time. Yeah. It's part of the job, but I'll say I'm really good at turning the switch on and off. It's just a frequency match. Okay. But for an example, the other day I was on an airplane, and I sat down next to somebody on the plane, and they're like, oh, I was telling them what I do. And of course, it's millions of questions they have about how it works and all that, which was great. It was fun. And they're like, oh, well, do you do readings on airplanes? I'm like, no, because then everything on the airplane will start like trying to get my attention. Right. But a message from a spirit that was on the other side was tapping me on the shoulder for the woman I was sitting next to. So that squeaked in, but otherwise, no. I'm very selective when I work.
So you're not like Teresa Caputo, like going and being like, okay, I got to go up to this person and tell them this.
It is all scripted. Don't let anyone fool you. I actually brought it up in my workshop on Saturday. I said, for one of those 15-minute segments on her show, they probably filmed her for 2 hours. I mean, that's kind of a guess, but mediumship is it's like playing Pictionary. You're playing Pictionary with somebody who's passed away, and they're showing you images, or they're saying letters or initials, and you're writing it all down, or you're trying to like synthesize it. They edit it on the show to make it more of a synthesized story, so you get to the point. Otherwise, you could sit there for a while trying to figure out, like, where is she going with this? Okay. There's no doubt she works quickly. People that I feel like do it professionally and have the muscle worked out, you typically can bring in things rather quickly. But I'm telling you, the session is longer than what it appears to be on TV.
Okay. Well, and I figured that, but so for not everyone understands how TV works.
So. A lot of it is so scripted. I've been on a variety of reality TV shows. I don't know if that's something necessarily worth bragging about, but
yeah, well, super interesting. So,
oh my God. Several. And
okay.
most of them, they don't hand you a script, but they say, all right, so here's what we need to happen in this scene. And you have like the 5 things, you have to make sure are accomplished in that scene. But yeah, I did Gene Simmons' Family Jewels on A&E. I did I Love Kelly Pickler on CMT. I don't think they ever aired the Deadliest Catch one that I was on. A lot of them, like you film them and then you don't ever know if they make it to TV or not, or if you make it to TV or not. But it's fun. I was a backup dancer for TRL, Carson Daly's TRL, a few episodes in Las Vegas. That was a long time ago.
Okay.
So and again, nothing worth bragging about because it was in somebody's backyard in Las Vegas. And it was like they had built a like motocross, like a motorcycle kind of track thing. Because there was a bunch of bikers associated with the TRL episodes that they were filming in Vegas. And it was a bunch of dirt. And I'm in there in my jeans, like trying to act like a backup dancer, So again, nothing worth bragging about, but.
So, okay. So I do want to ask this because it is in line with like the Teresa Caputos of the world that have TV shows and Tyler Henry and some of these others. And, are there people out there who really are not as legit as they seem to be that are doing this work? And how do you know the difference? Like, how can someone be sure that whoever they're going to like hire as a psychic medium is legit?
That's a great question. For me, I feel like if somebody gets to the point where they're going on tour, they have a TV show, I feel like there's got to be some level of credibility there, or enough people have believed that there's enough credibility there, because oftentimes they have you audition for the producer or the network, and because they want to make sure that they're backing somebody that is legit and that people can respect and work with, right? So I do think there's a little bit of checks and balances there, just from my experience with the TV stuff. But unfortunately, just in any profession, there are people that are not good people, or people that are more after the money, which could be, associated with fraud. Like, oh, they'll tell you what you want to hear, or, hey, you've got a curse, pay me this much, I'll make the curse go away. I hear that all the time.
Yeah, that I heard recently. Crazy.
Yeah, and they usually charge a bunch of money. So there are people in this industry that take a lot of great advantages over people. So I would say do your homework. Like, if you're somebody that's listening to this and you're like, hey, I want to do a session, if you have a friend that's into spirituality, maybe ask them, who do you know? Sometimes you can look on Yelp and see if there's any kind of reviews of any kind. Go on their website. Like, how do you feel when you look at their website? How do you feel when you look at their picture?
Right.
Because there's so many people that aren't really that good, you got to trust your gut on it. And I would say, do one session. You could even ask somebody, like, if I purchase a session, are there any other fees involved? Because what I've seen from people is, they'll meet somebody, let's say at a mystic fair, some kind of event. And, they pay the $20 and they get the little session. And then the person says, oh, well, come into my office and, we'll do a session, next week. And then they go to the session next week and then they're like, well, hey, listen, you've got this curse. Pay me $400 or $500 and I'll break it for you. So it's kind of like a bait and switch kind of thing. So if somebody says to you, like, hey, pay me this much money and I'll help you with blank, run. Because I feel somebody that's legitimate, it's like any other service, like going to get your hair done or going to get a massage. Like, they have a menu. You know what you're kind of expecting and going in for. And you relatively kind of know, like, what you're going to get in the end. There shouldn't be any big surprises when working with a spiritual practitioner, other than the delightful things that happen during your session.
Yeah. Great advice. And so you would be one that people could come to for that, right? That is one of your services. Do you do work with private clients still?
Oh, yeah. My calendar's on my website, spiritandspark.com. Yeah, I do psychic, I do card, I do mediumship, I do coaching. I actually really love coaching. But what happens is, like if somebody says, hey, I want you to coach me on my business stuff, because I've owned businesses before and all that and worked as an executive. So I love the business coaching. But what happens is somebody will show up and say, hey, I want to look at like this new business idea, or I'm thinking about making a change. I'm going to quit my job and start this company, whatever it is. And although I love the coaching of it and helping them sort through it, the psychic stuff, like ping, 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 ping. So you get the blend of psychic information and the coaching. And so at the end, you get left with like an action plan of what to do next. So they're very productive, and I enjoy those. They're fun.
Yeah, I love that, because years ago I had a coach that was a psychic as well. So I loved the input that I would get from him. And then I've continued that. Like I work with people that have that extra ability, just because, you know, I can get my own information, but it's nice to have validation, or like if I'm not seeing clearly, right? Having
It's
that.
hard to see the picture when you're the frame. We're too close to it.
Right.
And sometimes if we want something to happen because we're emotionally tied or invested in a specific outcome, we're not, we tend to go down our rabbit holes of questioning everything and getting mixed messages because we're too emotionally invested in it. So we have to have somebody look at it that doesn't care one way or the other and can just tell you like, well, here's what it looks like. So that it helps you make the best decision for yourself. Yeah.
No, I thank you for clarifying that in a beautiful way.
So, I was going to use the word subjective and objective, and I couldn't remember which one was which. So you get the idea.
Okay, well, let's talk about the summit that you have put together, Planets and Predictions. It's coming up starting September 19th, and it runs through what date?
Yeah, the daily speakers, the 19th through the 30th. Registration goes until this Saturday, the 17th. Takes like 10 seconds to register. It's free.
And it's free. It's free. And I'm going to put the link in to all the places so that if you want to register, it's free. Okay. And there are over 20 speakers, right?
Yeah, there's like 25, 26 speakers somewhere in there. And then I'll probably do something at the end with like some of my psychic predictions. So in the neighborhood of 25 of us.
Yeah.
And you're one of them. Oh, your talk is fantastic. So, it's called Planets and Predictions, your first look at what 2023 will bring. And it's really my gift to anyone. We have people from all over the world that have registered. And I did it because I felt like there was a lot of fear out there. And listen, there's going to be a lot of craziness in these next several years.
Yeah.
It's going to be volatile. People are going to be just all over the place. There's absolutely things that are going to shift everything about our daily life, that I believe. But we don't have to be scared of it. It's like, well, how do we work with the energy? So the summit is really asking each speaker individually, like, all right, what do you feel is happening? You know, how do we thrive during this time? How do we better prepare ourselves? How do we open ourselves up more to receive our own messages?
Yeah.
And so each day, everybody that registers, you'll start getting the emails on September 19th. And there's surprises around every corner.
Well, right. And I mean, and the people that you have brought together, so it's a combination of psychics and astrologers and, you know, me, I'm not in that category necessarily, but I'm talking about the galactics. And what other people do you have? And I love the variety, like the gender balance and even the ethnicity balance that you have, because I don't see that in a lot of summits.
Yeah, pretty diversified, I would say. And some people were recommended by other people. Some people I've really loved their work. And so I reached out and said, hey, you want to be involved? I would say about 80% are astrologers of the speakers.
Okay.
And I have them look at the planets, the transits, the specific date, and kind of give us these key dates to pay attention to, what we can kind of expect to unfold. The other 20%, you're included, would be looking at things that maybe we don't necessarily think about every day, because I do think galactics are going to be coming in a very big way.
Oh, yeah.
I think you're right on target with your books and everything that you talk about with that. So it's important that it is included, because I think it's going to be a big part of what comes in our life. And then I have several people that I would put as like healers. So I've got, energy healers. I've got somebody who channels light language. I have an individual that works with the subconscious mind as a hypnotherapist. So it's a really good mix. Feng shui. I have a woman who talks about like decluttering your space and the importance of doing that so that your energy also declutters. So I think my recommendation would be everyone should watch the daily speakers each day to keep up, and keep a notebook with a pen and write down different things you're taking away from each speaker. A lot of the speakers are doing free gifts. Some are doing like a premium experience, whether it's a session or a bundle or something like that. But the ticket itself, absolutely free. And then you just kind of participate in what you want. But I encourage everyone to listen to every speaker, because they're all fantastic.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it, because there are some new people that I haven't ever experienced. And I love being exposed to new information and teachers. And so with so many astrologers, do they all have different ways that they're looking at these charts? Because, that's interesting that you would have so many different astrologers.
Yeah. So what I did, because I love astrology, I'm actually starting to go to astrology school the end of this month myself,
Okay.
because I talk about it all the time and I love it. But I want to know, like, how do I make a chart by hand? How do I do the calculations by hand? And so it's an online school out of the UK, and I'm really excited to start diving into that. But what I've found, just being an enthusiast, is there are so many layers to astrology and the transits and what they mean. So each of the astrology speakers, I asked them in advance to select either a transit or something they wanted to focus in on.
Okay.
And so surprisingly, a lot of it is fresh, information from each speaker, because
Yeah.
they're all taking a slightly different look at the astrology for 2023. So intentionally that way, because otherwise it could feel very repetitive.
Right.
So, yeah,
And
I had them pick
I
a
wanted to
topic.
ask you that question, because if people are like, well, okay, it's predictions and you've got 80% astrologers, it's all going to be the same.
Yeah. So I had to do that so that it didn't feel like it was just overlapping. Like I have one woman who is talking about money, cryptocurrency, and gold. Like that is her focus, is the future of money.
Okay.
I have somebody else who's looking at like transits of the past and history of the past and how they aligned with certain aspects, and how those historical events, the same energy is coming up for us. So what could the comparisons look like?
Okay.
So yeah, really interesting topics.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, so Lisa Gunshore is the one that introduced us. And so she will be in the summit, as well as my soul sister, Jody Harvilla. So super
Yeah,
excited.
Jody did the decluttering one.
Okay.
And Lisa Gunshore is health and wellness predictions, like what she's seeing for health and the wellness stuff that's going to be happening. So yeah.
And they've both been on the show. So I just want to make sure everyone needs to sign up for this summit. Yes. And as part of the summit, I have a very special bundle that I am offering that I can't even believe. I'm kind of like, maybe I should have done that.
I know, I was thinking that, because yesterday I was like getting some of the stuff prepared, because everything starts on the 19th. And so I was typing that out and I'm like, God, this bundle's really good.
So basically the bundle that I'm offering for the summit is a 1 hour meet your galactic family and guides, plus a copy of the book, plus a copy of the Oracle deck, all for the price of what I do normally just do the spirit or meet your family for. So you're getting the book and the Oracle deck for free, essentially.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Yeah. I hope they all sell out. No, because I want them to work with you. I've done sessions. I did RTT, like a rapid form of hypnotherapy, where I had an RTT practitioner take me back to meet my galactic mom.
Oh, tell me about that.
Woo! It still like makes the energy like move through my body when I even mention it. And I had her record it so I can go back and like connect with the energy really quickly.
Yeah.
But so loving and kind. And I think the reason why we even looked at that, because it wasn't really on my radar, we were working on other stuff too, was to help me understand, like really in a deep way, why I am here on Earth.
Okay.
My role, my purpose.
Yeah.
And feeling like I belonged, because the work can feel, for lack of a better word, kind of alienating.
Yeah.
And not everybody understands you and what you're talking about. And especially in this small town I'm in, they don't even want to have anything to do with me.
Okay.
And so connecting with that being that I really feel I've known for eons and eons, I felt like, oh, this is temporary.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bigger connection in play here. And so it was very loving. Yeah.
Beautiful. Did you get to see what she looked like? Or was it more just a feeling?
Yeah. And this is, I feel like she felt slender to me.
Okay.
And all the aliens, I'm hoping you tell me it's a good one. I'm like going back into the energy right now. The eyes were big. But she has like this feeling of her. Yeah, I just keep feeling like long, like a softness to her face. It's kind of hard to explain, but she would be what I would compare to like other kinds of aliens that I've seen, but she does not feel like harmful.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I'm glad you bring that up, and I love shifting people's perspective of this, not necessarily yours, but like maybe the audience listening or watching. When different races are resonating in different frequencies, they reside in different densities. And so we, as Earth humans, we are in third, fourth dimension, third density, and we still have polarity. So any of the alien races that are still in third density reality have polarity. And so there may be individuals within those races that are more service to self and kind of like our control, fear-mongering people here, Earth humans. And then there are others that are service to others, more compassionate, loving, kind, and understand. Where as soon as you hit fourth density, fifth dimension, there is no more polarity. So most of the beings reside in fifth dimension or higher. And so your experience of your galactic mother, she's definitely in that higher vibration.
Wow.
No matter what race she is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's so fascinating. I know I'm going to have you on my show soon to talk about cat connection to aliens.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Well, and there are going to be some fun stories about that. And one of my very good friends, April, who's been on the show a couple times, she has really, like, I can share it here because she's been on the show talking about this, but and I'll share it again on your show because it's fun. But she's actually seen a cat coming out of a portal, like right in front of her. And so she lives in Texas too, in the Austin area.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I'm in Temple, Texas, if you're around there.
Okay, so I might have to connect you guys. She's also a psychic. And so anyway, so there are all sorts of fun cat connections with the cosmos for sure. But yeah, we'll save that. So besides meeting your galactic mother, have you had any other kind of UFO or alien experiences that you remember? Because you did talk about your grandmother talking about that when you were young. But do you have any memory or anything?
Yeah, I mean, there's a family cabin that my grandparents built in Idaho. And if anyone's familiar with the Idaho area, like Coeur d'Alene in Idaho, like that kind of
area. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not too far from there. And so there was nothing going on, 30 years ago in that area, and at least in this part of Idaho. And we would sit out on the deck of her cabin, and she'd, oh, did you see that? Did you see that? So she would see a lot of spacecraft. There were multiple reports in that area of Idaho of craft going and into the mountains and behind the mountains and ducking in and out of spaces. I have a cousin who was in that area at that same location who has missing time.
Okay.
So he's had that experience. My dad has seen multiple spacecraft. Mm-hmm. He was on an airplane a couple weeks ago, and I bought him a copy of a UFO magazine, like the History Channel put it out or something. So I bought it for him, and he's on the plane reading the magazine about UFOs, and he feels intuitively look out the window. So he looks out the window, and he literally on camera films a UFO. My dad works in aviation, so he knows his aircraft.
Yeah.
And he films it, and it's flying underneath the airplane. Oh. And it's one of those things, right? Like he has it on film.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad also sees higher frequencies, right? So, and he has a lot of experiences with ghosts and seeing things just like I do.
Yeah.
So would the guy sitting next to him have seen it?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. And that's a very interesting point, because sometimes, there can be a craft right there. And if sometimes it's only meant for that person to see, or they have the ability to see into those higher dimensions where the other people around don't. But I love that video cameras, they don't have any judgment. They don't have the filter that we do. And so they can pick up that movement, even when our eyes can't necessarily see it. Yeah. I showed a photo on Facebook a couple weeks ago that my a good friend's mom took off the lanai in Waikiki. And it was 6:30 in the morning. She was just taking a picture of what she thought was just the beautiful ocean view. But when she went back through her pictures, there is a full-on spacecraft hovering above the water. It's giant. And there was a boat in the water and surfers. So there was scale to see like how big it was. But she didn't see it with her eyes. It was just, it showed up on her phone camera. So,
well, in Hawaii is like a whole other story. I mean,
yes.
You're blessed to be able to live in that space. My grandmother, it was her favorite place in the whole world, the one I get my gifts from. And her very last trip I took her on was to Hawaii. And there's so much there. It's like every day, all day.
There is. So with these gifts that you now have fully developed, what would you say is the most profound thing for you in your life of having these gifts that you've experienced?
Oh, there are a handful. I don't remember my sessions afterwards.
Okay.
They're typically gone by the time I go to bed that night. There's not mine to keep, but every once in a while, I'll do a session that hits me so hard that the human part of me can't quite release it all the way, you know? And it's probably to keep me humble and keep me human, right? But like I remember a woman I spoke to, these have been, you know, a while ago, but her young son had just committed suicide and she was having a hard time figuring out what happened, why. I mean, very young. That one was really hard. There was another one that I did mediumship. It's usually the mediumship ones that stick with you. A woman came in, found me on Instagram. This was in Las Vegas. And I didn't know her. And she said, oh, I want to connect with my friend who just died. Well, turns out he had just been killed a few days before at the 1 October shooting in Las Vegas at the concert. I cried the entire way home after that one. That one was really tough. I think the last example I would use, there was a gentleman I did a session 4 years ago. His dad came through in spirit and showed me some of the things that he had done to his son and then apologized. And the dad on the other side is crying, the son is crying. And I mean, how can you not have a reaction to that? So,
wow.
Yeah, they were all three incredibly difficult, yet, in my opinion, I think very healing for the people that were involved in those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when you're doing mediumship, is it always just past loved ones, or are there other beings like angels or galactics or other things that have ever come into the sessions?
Yeah, I mean, animals come in. Yeah, there's all kinds of stories with animals. Yeah, they'll come in. I would say, in my experience for psychic readings, that's usually when I'll see more of the galactics.
Okay.
And they sound very high pitched. And typically when they come in, it's so that I can help the person understand, the client understand that they're connected to these galactic beings and they're trying to help them. And so it's kind of like bridging the gap of the communication between them. But they definitely come in. It's interesting. Angels feel very different. Their energy is almost like soft and cloudy, like a feather. Galactics sound like kind of like light language, like it's just kind of like a high pitched frequency. Guides come in as a bit more practical. The energy feels a bit practical to me. But yeah, you can start to feel the subtleties between the different beings when they come in.
Okay. Well, and I love, how you're able to tease that apart. Yeah. So what's interesting is the few kind of psychic medium sessions that I've had, I don't really have dead people coming to me or coming to my sessions. only my husband's mother. She shows up every time because she just, I've never met her in person, but she is always around. And she wants to always tell me how much she loves me and how good I am for her son.
Oh, I love that.
But it's been the galactics that are coming in because they're like, okay, no. I mean, I don't have a lot of dead relatives that were really impactful in my life, or friends or anything. So maybe that's why. But yeah.
Yeah, I find that clients tend to really like skew one way or the other. Like they either really want mediumship and to connect with somebody who's passed, or most of my clients, I would say, really want psychic information. Like they want to look at their life, what they're supposed to do. And I think part of the reason why I do so much psychic work is because of what we're living in today. And all of the changes that are happening and are about to happen, people are feeling a bit more on edge about money, about resources.
Right.
So they're a bit more concerned about what they're going to do.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to see if that kind of stays the same, or as we move through these next few years, do they want the comfort that people who have passed away can bring in? So be interesting to see how it shifts, or if it does.
Yeah. Well, and again, just to once again plug the summit, because there are all sorts of predictions coming from a variety of people and modalities. So definitely sign up for the summit. You will not regret it. And okay, so we're coming to our end, but I just want you to share with people how you work with clients, like what kind of sessions do you do, and then how can they find you?
Absolutely. Yeah. My website and Instagram and Facebook, it's all Spirit and Spark, all spelled out, spiritandspark.com. Yeah, I do 30, 60, or 30, 45, and 60-minute sessions. A lot of people usually ask, like, well, how long should I do? I'd say if you've got like a handful of things you want to look at, I'd suggest a 45 or a 60-minute. I tend to work pretty fast, but that gives us enough time to get through, what you want to look at. So yeah, that's all on the website. My calendar's on there, so people can go on there and book directly. That's really easy. And then yeah, Instagram and Facebook, Spirit and Spark.
Okay, and you can do it. You do it over the internet.
Yeah, I do it over Zoom video. I mean, I like the in-person connection. I love sitting with somebody. But during the pandemic, I had to really turn everything virtual because I couldn't have my storefront open.
Right.
And it has opened up the world so much because I have clients now that are in Europe and Asia, and the energy is everywhere. Like you can read anyone anywhere. I don't even need to see them. When I first started, I only did sessions over the phone, couldn't see somebody.
Okay.
That's how you know you got a good psychic, if they're accurate and they can't see you.
Yeah.
Because they're not reading your body language or your facial expressions. And then I also, for a time, somebody could like send in an email question. So you don't even have to like use your voice. You can send in a printed question and I can tune in and do it. So yeah, it's all energy.
It is energy. I love it. I love it. Well, Dalisa, thank you so much for spending time with me today. And
It was fun. Thank you.
For the summit to come out, and then I'm going to be on your show in October. So I'll be posting that information as we come up to that. And so for those of you watching and listening, thank you so much. And I'll see you next time. Aloha.